In 1959, more than 350 dark films were made in Hollywood, films that became known as film noir. One of the earliest and most influential was this one, Double Indemnity.
Who do you suspect?
Look at this scene in it. The actress and the wall at the far end of the corridor are both in focus. The visual depth of Mitsuguchi, Stagecoach, and Citizen Kane.
See you at the office in the morning. Yeah.
The situation is this. The insurance man who's coming out of the door has fallen for the woman who hides behind the door, the wife of one of his clients. She convinces him to help her kill her husband and share the insurance payout. They do so. The man's boss in the dark suit begins to suspect that the wife is the murderess and goes to the man's apartment to tell him his hunch. If the boss saw the wife there, it would confirm his hunch and implicate the man, his employee. So the wife hides behind the man's outward opening door.
Good night, Keys.
So long, Walter.
Double Indemnity's director, Billy Wilder, was an Austrian Jew who fled the Nazis in 1933. Ironically filmed here in the bright sun of Santa Monica, his films were thematically dark. Like many émigrés who made great film noir, Fritz Lang, Robert Siodmak, Otto Preminger, Michael Curtiz, Jacques Tourneur, he loved the unpretentiousness of America, but hated its worship of money. The wife in this scene lusts for it. The man lusts for her,
Good night, Keys.
and, because he's weak and flawed, for money too. Robert Towne, who wrote the film Chinatown.
Cinema noir, the characters are fated in one way or another, and it's a character flaw of some kind. They're like moths and flames. You look at Walter in Double Indemnity.
And I wanted to see her again, close, without that silly staircase between us.
He just can't resist a pretty anklet. You look at Robert Mitchum in Out of the Past. He can't, he wants to be with a decent girl, but he can't stay out of the way. It's usually a femme fatale. Even when he wants to disentangle himself, he can't avoid it. Get us with Chinatown. There's some flaw in them that drives them to their fate, even as they try to avoid it. And not just a dark world where they get kind of beaten up. They are men who, at some deep unconscious level, seek out their fate, even as they try to avoid it.
Paul Schrader, who wrote Taxi Driver and Raging Bull.
The flawed hero, which first sort of appeared in the Freud-influenced films, but it never really took hold till after the war, when these guys came home from the war, and you had all of that social dislocation where women who had gotten jobs in the war were now expected to give up their jobs, and men who fought in the war came home and didn't have any money. There's a lot of frustration. And so that kind of Freudian hero started feeling like a much more realistic hero than he had felt like in, the 30s and 40s.
War, the city of LA, flawed characters, and social and legal collapse created noir, but so did other things. The lattice of shadows of German expressionism can be seen. In this German film, light casts a grid of shadows, but the handrail is a lattice too. Double Indemnity was co-written by Raymond Chandler, who, along with Dashiell Hammett, created the character types and situations of noir. Howard Hawks filmed Chandler's The Big Sleep in 1946. Humphrey Bogart played Philip Marlowe. The film crackled with snappy dialogue. a feature of the best noirs.
Isn't that right? May I use your phone, Mr. Marlowe? Hello? Police headquarters, please. Hello, this is Mrs.
Hello, what do you want, please? What? I called you. Say, who is this? Sergeant Riley? Well, there isn't any Sergeant Riley here. Wait a minute, you better talk to my mother.
The Big Sleep was the most influential film noir since Double Indemnity. Its complex plot set a fashion. The film was co-written by Lee Brackett, another great female screenwriter who co-wrote this film, Rio Bravo, in which Angie Dickinson gets the best lines.
You see, that's what I'd do if I were the kind of girl that you think I am.
And Brackett co-wrote this film, Star Wars: The Empire Strikes Back. In the film's climax, Luke discovers, in the style of a Hollywood romance, that Darth Vader's his father. Brackett had helped bring traditional movie storytelling into the 70s. The women in film noir haunt the films. Jane Greer in Out of the Past takes her time, moves like velvet, knows that the man is weak, enjoys his gaze, turns it to her advantage. Usually in noir, it's an immoral advantage. And yet, of the 350 or so noirs, only one, this one, was directed by a woman, Ida Lupino. She mastered the form using spotlighting and subjective camera, a film with downturned eyes. Directing an American film had become, by this stage, a boys' club. And there's so much more to say about film noir. The pugnacious presence of actor Edward G. Robinson in Double Indemnity is a reminder of how noir was fascinated by the sort of gangster films of the 30s in which Robinson appeared. In those, he was disdainful, dapper. And its pessimism came in part from the poetic realist films of France in the 1930s, such as this moody encounter between two lost souls in Quai des Brumes. If proof is needed that France influenced America in the 40s, look at this film, La Chienne, directed by Jean Renoir. A man falls in love with a hard-hearted young woman. It was remade as Scarlet Street by Fritz Lang in America 14 years later. The scene where the man pleads for the woman's love is very similar. Its star, Edward G. Robinson. Here in Montrose, a suburb of Los Angeles, a B-movie called Gun Crazy was shot in 1950. It was one of the most innovative, passionate noirs ever made and shows how documentary and neorealism influenced the genre. It was directed by this Hemingway-esque man, speaking on his fishing boat, the great B-movie director, Joseph H. Lewis. A man and a woman, passionate and reckless, are about to rob a bank. Their hearts are beating. In a conventional noir, we'd see their faces, sweaty brows. Here, Lewis keeps the camera behind them. His DP sat in the back seat on a jockey saddle. He made a special board on which the camera could pan. Lewis then had new button microphones put on the actors and on a policeman we're about to see, and gave the performers free rein to improvise.
There's a car just pulled out. We can get in there. So we'll have to... Yeah. Okay, right in here.
Fast as you can.
Don't worry. It'll be a minute longer than I have to. Here goes nothing.
Okay.
Filming a stick-up in the conventional way was scheduled to take 4 days. Lewis claims to have shot this in 3 hours and says that the unbroken shot covers 2 miles of ground.
Get out there. Wait, copper, go on. That's right. Stand right there. Okay. This is it.
The camera and DP on the jockey saddle move forward and right. Another sound recordist was strapped to the top of the car.
Well, it's a nice get-up.
I like it.
Good-looking gun.
Thanks.
That's English, ain't it?
That's right.
What show you with?
Cheyenne, Rodeo, and Carnival. The rest will be coming through in a few minutes. I got too far out in front.
You gonna play here?
No,
Well, it's an easy town on shows. 3 tickets, you've covered the whole police force.
that's a pretty nice gun you got, too.
I'm sorry, I don't let anybody handle it. I killed a man with it last year.
Can you have it coming to him?
Yes, but it wasn't much fun watching him get down. He had an idea he could get in the first shot.
The staging looked so real that passers-by yelled, "They've held up a bank."
Leave it. Okay, take off.
The deadly passion and stylistic innovation of Gun Crazy were a major influence on a much later film, Bonnie and Clyde, about the anxiety of a couple that robs banks.
Your mama could take his bank.
Straight between the eyes. She didn't fool me for a minute, not this time. I knew
Paul Schrader says that Noir died out in 1958, but its influence can be seen much later in LA Confidential, in which Kim Basinger pretends to be Veronica Lake in This Gun for Hire. In Blade Runner, in which Sean Young walks through shadows in a pool of light, like a film noir, femme fatale. In The Dark Knight, in which the city is fetid and morally dark. And even in Mumbai noir, such as Shiva, directed by Ram Gopal Varma, all shadows and low camera angles. The influence of film noir has travelled the world.